For the second time in a few weeks, Manchester United missed key opportunities in the game to make a statement victory. United draw 0-0 with Arsenal at the Emirates. Disappointing really, I think, from Man United's point of view, and we'll get into my thoughts on the game in just a second. Before we get into that, as always, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel as well if you are new, and also if you're watching the video, let me know your thoughts on the game in the comment section down below. I want to hear what you guys have to say, because I'm interested to hear what you thought overall, if on the balance you take the point, or whether, as I gather probably most United fans will be, whether you're disappointed with that. Please do let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section down below, and also in the live chat as well, as we are live, and I'll be bringing up the comments as usual. We've got Kobe in here already. Thanks for joining. Kobe says, what's the point of Donny van der Beek? We'll get on to that in just a second, but I think your comment is very, very valid indeed. But United, again, as I said, missing opportunities in games, big opportunities. Realistically, Edinson, Cavani had two brilliant opportunities at the end. Rashford had one in the first half where you're just thinking, hit it first time, Rashford, mate. Hit it first time. But in the end, he just kind of miscontrols it, tries to get it onto his right foot, and just doesn't work out in the end. But, one thing I've seen with the strikers is that I feel like we're actually better at finishing when we don't have that much time to think about it. Especially with Rashford. When Rashford's actually having to, think about what he's going to do, he often takes too many touches, and then, the chance goes. When he's only got one thing on his mind, and it's direct, and the ball just falls to him and he hits it, often he scores. And unfortunately, when you have that, you're going to miss chances in games. And today we missed, 3 or 4 very, very good chances. And it's very frustrating because, as well, looking at that Arsenal lineup, it was a weak Arsenal team. No Tierney, no Aubameyang, no Saka as well, which I was surprised about, but apparently got a knock to the hip or something. They were there for the taking. We could have done that. We could have won today, and we should have won today. To be fair, defensively, I don't think we were too bad, but it's frustrating really, because if we are going to go for this title, we need to win those sorts of games, and we didn't. We didn't take our chances. Adam, thanks for joining us. Inconsistent FC is back. Dazza, thanks for joining as well. Make sure to check out Dazza's Football Stand. Salute to you, my friend, by the way. Live for a whole 8 hours today. Did some brilliant work on his channel. Make sure you do check it out if you haven't already. Jamie says, evening, disappointing that was. Couldn't agree with you more, Jamie. It was just a disappointing, draw. I was about to say defeat then, because it actually does feel a lot like a defeat. But, the fact is, we had the chances to win the game. And in some ways, it's better to draw playing well than to draw, when you get absolutely bombarded. But realistically, we had the chance to win that game. We didn't take them. Kobe says, bloody Owen would score that Rashford chance. I'm not sure about that, but I know what you mean, Kobe. I know what you mean. Dazza says, Rashford tried to be cocky, getting past all the defenders and goalkeeper. Well, exactly. If he just smashes that towards goal, if he lets it run onto his right foot and smashes that towards goal, it's in the back of the net. I mean, Leno can't do anything about it, so that is the frustrating thing. But obviously, we're not there in the situation, so when you're watching it from TV, the chance always looks a lot easier. But he should have put that away, man. There's no bones about it. There's no way he shouldn't have put that chance away. I'm sorry, but it is frustrating. And, it's when we got the chances to fall to Edinson, Cavani, I think all of us were thinking he's the banker. He's the guy that's going to put the ball in the back of the net. Unfortunately, even he was having an off game today, which worried me slightly. I think our front three has not been in good form. If it isn't Martial having a stinker, it's Rashford having a stinker. And now Edinson, Cavani's even not scoring. It's really worrying, to be honest, if this does continue. Hopefully in the game against Southampton, we can win that and get our confidence back. But if we don't win that, and you know what, the way Southampton are playing right now, and the previous games we've had against Southampton, I think it could be a very, very difficult contest. Very, very difficult indeed. So that's something which I'm not looking forward to. And I wasn't looking forward to this game, to be honest. But I actually thought we created chances. We just didn't put them away. And that's the most frustrating thing, in my opinion. Jamie says Rashford should never be on the right wing again. Also, don't like Pogba on the wing. Doesn't work. I agree with both those things, Jamie. I feel like Rashford's a lot better on the left than the right. I feel like on the right, he doesn't have any sort of chance to cut in. And the problem with Rashford is, even when he does cut in, he doesn't, pull the trigger. And then he pulls the trigger when he's just in the worst position possible. And it's just so frustrating, because there's loads of times where he'll do a nice skill move and get himself running into the back four. And you can see the fullback, kind of tracking back and being like, I'm not taking on Rashford. No chance. I'm backing off. But realistically, you've got to have that end product. And Rashford right now does not have that end product. I think the last assist he got was that pass to Pogba when Pogba scored the volley against Burnley. That was pretty well the last thing that Rashford did where you think, you know what, that was a good bit of end product. Apart from that, he hasn't been great. He really hasn't been great. So again, it's something to worry about a little bit. But it's good that he's getting in the right positions, and I feel like in every game he's played, he has got in the right positions. But he just hasn't been able to put the ball in the back of the net, and it sounds so simple. But if you don't do that, and the way we play our system, if you don't do that, we're not going to win any football matches. Kobe says, if we don't get a right wing, we may as well put Diallo in. Yeah, to be fair, Diallo scoring 2 goals on his debut for the under-23s against Liverpool in a 6-3 victory. I tell you what, that game would have been much better to watch than this one. Dazza says, Saints and Toffees next. Doesn't get much easier. No, it doesn't, Daryl. You're 100% right with that. It really doesn't get any easier. And this is the problem, is that, you know, in title charge, in like title races, you get bad periods. You get periods of fixtures where they'll test you, and if you're not up for the test, then you know you find it very, very difficult to actually put together a title charge. And especially in these games we played in the last few, where we've had the opportunities to win, but we've just not taken them. That's the most frustrating thing. If we got absolutely outclassed, at least we could say, you know what, we've got away with a point there. But realistically, in the last few games, we haven't been able to say that, and it's so frustrating. Adam says, the only good thing about today, I got the best chicken burger ever. Well, glad you're happy with that chicken burger, Adam. Glad you are happy. But yeah, I think in terms of, you know, our front three, it is a bit worrying. Obviously, we had all of Cavani, Greenwood, Martial and Rashford all playing today. Not all on the pitch at the same time, but they did all get a run out today. But none of them really made that much of an impact in terms of, you know, on the score sheet. Yes, obviously Cavani got in the right places and Rashford got in the right positions. But if you don't put the ball in the back of the net, you may as well have played shit. Because if you're a forward player and you're not putting the ball in the back of the net, I'm sorry, I don't know how to tell you this, but it's just not going well. It's as simple as that. Realistically, you're not there to kind of look fancy and do some skill moves and then have no end product. You're there to have the end product. And if you don't have the end product, there's no point in you being there, to be honest. But in the end of the day, you know, we've seen these players go on bad runs of form, and you just got to hope it picks up. And I feel like, you know, once they have one good game, it'll pick up from there. But unfortunately, recently, it hasn't been good. I think we've scored, like, in the league, I think we've scored, like, 1 goal in our last 2 or 3 league games, which isn't good form. It's not title chasing form. No chance. And by the way, the title charge is pretty well over now, in my opinion. I don't have too much hope about Man City slipping up. They look absolutely ruthless. And to be fair, today they won 1-0 against Sheffield United, and that's the sort of win you need if you're going for a title. You need those sort of gutsy, you know, wins where they're not easy, they're not comfortable, they're not pretty, but you get through it. And that's what we should have done against Sheffield United. Even though, you know, we should have battered Sheffield United. On paper, in those sort of games when you're playing against a low block and, you know, they're trying to play on the counter-attack, you just need to take 1 or 2 of your chances and then just make sure you see out that game. And we didn't do that. Adam says, also the NBA's on tonight. Yeah, well, I won't be watching it, but hopefully you enjoy it. Kobe says, our lack of a right wing is costing us. I agree. I feel like, you know, on that wing is definitely a place to be a little bit concerned. I think towards the end of last season, our front three of Greenwood, Rashford and Martial did well for us, to be fair. It did well. And actually scored one of the most amount of goal tallies of all of Europe's top 5 front threes. And was one of the best in Europe in terms of goals. But this season, it just hasn't been really working out. And I feel like it's because we're not playing on the counter-attack as much as we were last season. You know, when you are playing completely on the counter-attack, the pacing behind is always really, really effective. But now, when we're getting into positions where we need to, you know, put in a decent cross or, you know, you're getting put through on goal and you need to finish, we're not doing that this season. You know, Rashford and Martial both have had poor seasons in terms of, you know, finishing off chances. Rashford not as much so as Martial, but in the same vein that, you know, recently Rashford has been completely off it, not finishing any of his chances, which is frustrating because he gets in really good positions. That's the most frustrating thing. You know, if he was, you know, constantly being hounded out, not really getting into good positions and not playing well, you'd be like, well, it's expected. But the fact he gets into those positions and gives you hope is so frustrating when, you know, hits into the side netting, or, you know, there's times where you're thinking just pull the trigger and then he passes it, and then there's times where you're thinking, right, pass it across, simple pass, simple tap in, and he shoots. And it's like, that's the most frustrating thing for me. Jamie thinks City will walk the league. I think right now you're probably right, Jamie. I think even with Kevin De Bruyne out, they're still grinding out these wins. And that's a sign of a title-challenging team. That's a sign of a title-winning team. To be being able to grind out these results, win these games 1 or 2-0, even when you're not playing your best football. So I think, to me, that is something which is probably on the cards. I think you're right. He also says, my honest opinion this season, we're going to be fighting for third or second. Got to be careful because we could quite easily fall out of the top 4. Well, as Darryl said, we've got Southampton, we've got Everton coming up. It's not getting any easier for Manchester United and these players. And if we keep going on this barren run in front of goal, we could find ourselves out of the top 4 by this time next week. We really could if we're not careful. So, for me, we've got to be wary. We've got to pick this form back up. The one thing I would say about this season, though, is that even when you do drop out of the top 4, if you still remain there or thereabouts, if you do go on a good run of form, you can be easily back up in there again. So it's one of those seasons where I do see us going up, and I do see us going down. It's just a roller coaster season for pretty well every team, apart from Man City, who, even though they had their problems at the start of the season, I think now are really in control. And especially if they win their game in hand, they will be properly in control at the top of that league. It'll be their league to lose. And to be honest with you, I feel like it's their league to lose right now. We're 3 points behind them. They can go 6 points clear of us. Leicester, if they win their game tomorrow, I think, can actually go above us. So this point, obviously, a bit of a frustrating one, not just because we could have won the game, but because of our league position. Dazza says Hugo and Diallo is a decent shout. Good performance from them in the under-23s. They did well today. I think Hugo scored 4 of the 6 goals that United scored in a 6-3 victory over Liverpool. He looks impressive. He does look impressive. One thing I would say is the under-23s is a totally different league to the Premier League. Of course it is. But to be fair, we've had a few decent success stories since then come from the under-23s. So hopefully Hugo can be one of them. And Diallo as well. I'm really looking forward to seeing Diallo get some first-team action. I'm sure if he puts in the sort of performances that we saw in the under-23 match this afternoon, then I'm sure he'll get some game time. Adam says, Kieran, I know people are going to be talking about Diallo, but what about Hugo? He scored 4. Exactly, mate. Just mentioned him. Joe Hugo had a brilliant game today. 4 against Liverpool in the under-23s. I can't profess to say I watched too much of the under-23s. I don't really have MUTV, so I don't really watch too much of it. But of what I've seen of him, he looks similar to Greenwood in that he can finish a chance. He's so good at finishing, deadly from Hugo. So hopefully he can continue that sort of form. And obviously we don't have any more Carabao Cup games, but we have got the Europa League, so there is potential to potentially put him up front in these Europa League games. Because I feel like right now the best shout is to play the kids in the Europa League. Especially if we do start slipping out of the top 4, we will really need to concentrate on this league. So I think realistically in the Europa League, you'll see players like Donny van der Beek, you'll see players like Greenwood leading the line, Dan James, Juan Mata. These guys will be playing a lot, and I do think that's the right decision if that happens. Just talk about the under-23 game. Well, I mean, I can talk about the under-23 game, I guess, but it's one of those things where how much can you really draw from an under-23 game? How much information about players can you really draw about them? I mean, that's the thing with first-team football. It's so different to the under-23s. Yes, you're still playing against adults, but the Premier League is a different pace, it's a different quality. So we can't really say too much about these guys and put too much pressure on them until we've actually seen them in the Premier League. But it's always promising to have good players and have players performing well in leagues like the Premier League 2 and the under-23s games. It's always good to have that, because you never know when we might get an injury or there might be an opportunity for a young player to come through and take their stage. We've had it a few times over the seasons. Obviously Rashford coming through, Greenwood obviously coming through. So hopefully we do that. Hopefully we do. We see some more young players coming through and having the same sort of fortune that the likes of Rashford and Greenwood have had. Jamie says, must admit Arsenal getting harder to beat now, looking better organised. That's the one thing I'd say about Arsenal, is that in previous seasons they've been at 6s and 7s at the back. They've really been shocking, just abject at the back. But I think the players they brought in and the sort of confidence they've got right now in terms of defence, I think that's I can't remember how many clean sheets they've had this season, but I think they've got the second best defensive record in the league right now, and you would never say that with Arsenal. You'd never say Arsenal will be the team to have the second best defensive record in the league. That is ridiculous. But it shows the culture's changing a little bit under Mikel Arteta. Going forward, they're still playing decent football, but at the back is their major improvement. And they haven't even brought in too many personnel, really. Gabriel's the only main guy they brought in. Cedric, I thought, had an alright game today. But David Luiz got given man of the match by Sky Sports pundits, and some would say that that's a bit, generous, considering that we did have chances to win that game. And if Cavani puts away one of his chances, then there's no way David Luiz is named man of the match. But at the same time, you always knew that David Luiz was either going to have an absolute stormer against us or an absolute shocker. And it turns out, yet again, for the second game running, he has an absolute stormer against us. But against Man City, he loves a mistake. He loves a mistake and getting sent off within 30 minutes. He loves that. But against United, he's just turns into the David Luiz of 3 or 4 years ago we saw at Chelsea. Cody says, can't believe Donny didn't get a single minute. Well, I mean, I knew people picked on this point. Obviously, McTominay went off before the end of the first half. We replaced him with Anthony Martial. And a lot of people like that substitution in terms of Ollie trying to go for the kill, seeing that Arsenal were open at the back. But at the same time, penny for Donny van der Beek's thoughts in that situation. You're brought in for 35 million quid. One of our central midfielders are going off, and you're not being thought of as a player to replace him. And if we take our chances, it would have proven to be the right decision. But I think for Donny van der Beek's point of view, it's a hard pill to swallow, really. It's a bitter pill to swallow for him, considering, Scott McTominay is really the player that's in Donny van der Beek's place. I mean, you could argue that Bruno Fernandes and Paul Pogba were also occupying the main spots that Donny van der Beek would be taking. But for me, if I was Donny van der Beek, I would be pretty... I would be pretty miffed if I didn't get a spot. Adam says, I'm so angry Ollie out now. I wouldn't go that far, mate. We're still second in the league. You've got to put it in perspective. We're still second in the league. Even though we've had a bit of a blip, for me, I just think, Ollie's still showing that there has been progress made. The fact that we are very, very frustrated about this draw means that our mentality is changing, as I've said in recent weeks. And I feel like you can't give up on Ollie now. The fact we're even talking about a title challenge is testament to how this team has played this season. So I don't think you can really turn your back on Ollie now. I'm certainly not going to turn my back on Ollie now. Dazza says Pogba is better CDM rather than left mid. Well, Jamie obviously mentioned it. For me, Pogba on the wing does not work. It just doesn't work. It's just not good enough, really. He just doesn't. He doesn't have the tools to affect the game on the wing, because he doesn't have that blistering pace that can get by a fullback, and then he's having to always cut inside. And obviously he scored the goal that he did against Fulham by cutting inside and hitting it on his left foot, but obviously shooting is different to just in kind of having an effect on the overall play. And I think that's the thing that Pogba can't do when he's on the wing. When he's in the midfield, when he's in Bruno Fernandes' role of that 10, he can create, and he often does do well in that 10 role. So I'd 100% for me think that Paul Pogba's best position is not on the wing. It's no way on the wing. But in every single big game, we always seem to play Pogba on the left-hand side. When we only play, one central defensive midfielder, then Pogba and Bruno can play through the middle. But when we're playing in these big games, when we do end up, playing a 4-2-3-1, Pogba is always on the left or the right. And I know he does it for France, but that's a completely different scenario. So that's something which Ollie needs to look at, I think. Jamie says, but if McTominay didn't go off poorly, would have Ollie brought on Martial? I don't think so, really. I don't think he would have done. I think maybe, towards the end of the game, if he thought Cavani was blowing or, Rashford wasn't having a great game, then maybe Martial would have come on. But then when you've got Greenwood on the bench, I think, especially after the Sheffield United game, I would have gone with Greenwood as my first choice to bring on rather than Martial. Jamie also says, Adam, sorry, but that's silly to say we're going in the right direction. Just need to start scoring again and winning games. I agree, totally agree. Adam says, okay, never mind, Martial out now. Well, to be fair, I think Rashford today had the bad game. Martial didn't really get in the game too much, but I think Rashford was the player that had the bad game today. Didn't take any of his chances, got into good positions, but didn't take any of his chances whatsoever and lost the ball on quite a few occasions. But, it's frustrating because it seems like, if one of our forward players had a bad game one week, the other forward players go, you know what, I'll match you next week. And it's so frustrating, really. But, you know, what can you do at this point, really? You just got to hope that one game we start to click into gear and start finishing our chances, because right now, that's not the case. And fair play, Adam, 250 views. Hopefully that view count keeps going up for you, my friend. But I'm probably going to end it there. Thanks for watching, guys. Really appreciate it. Just a quick review of United's game versus Arsenal. In summary, a disappointing draw. A draw that sets our title hopes back again. And not a great week. Not a great end to a pretty poor week for Manchester United. Hopefully next week is better. But we play Southampton, so I don't think it's going to get easier, as Daryl said. But anyway, thanks for watching. Really do appreciate it. If you're watching as a video, make sure you hit your thoughts in the comment section down below. Hit that like button if you haven't already. Subscribe to the channel as well if you are new. And we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.